listening to the Around the Lens podcast, the home of high-quality, roundtable, visual journalism discussion about the news, topics, and gear related to our career field. Now, here's the host of our show, David J. Murphy.
Hello and welcome to episode 198 of Around the Lens. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me this week is my co-hosts, Travis Keys and Evelyn Hochstein. Hello, co-hosts.
What is going on? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
198. We are so close to that big 200.
I know, right? Exciting. 2 episodes away.
Yeah, I know. What are we doing for that?
We've got a bunch of great guests scheduled for that episode right now. We'll see who actually shows up, but I think we're going to have a pretty packed show for everybody who says they're going to show up. Of course, we're going to have, I always schedule Mike Sharky James for the big anniversary episodes because he's sort of our go-to anniversary episode guy. I don't ask him if he wants to be on the show. I just schedule
tradition. No, but he always says he's going to be there, which is very nice.
He's very reliable in that sense. But I do know if anybody's listening to the Petapixel show, they might realize he doesn't do that show as often as he used to. He's been doing about an episode a month now, but that's because he's setting up his own YouTube channel or something, or reviving his YouTube channel because he used to have that before he did the podcast or in conjunction with the podcast. Right. So, but we've got a lot of great guests for that episode so far lined up. But if I can get more, I will. I always love to see how many people I can stick on one episode.
Jam-packed.
That's right. I call them, Megatacular or something like that, episodes. So that's going to be our massive episode. So what you been up to Evelyn, what you been up to this week? Anything fun and exciting in your world?
Well,
how's that gnats going?
I have
get all the gnats out of your house?
The gnats, those gnats, right. They feel like gnats. They're getting squashed right now like gnats. But, we were on such a high with our 2 wins. The last 3 nights have been brutal. So I'm a little tired. I've been staying up for the last 3 nights watching their butts get kicked.
Because of watching stuff. My heart is bleeding.
But there's still hope. So I'm holding out hope. So we'll travel today and watch them tomorrow. So fingers crossed. Go Nats.
I know. It makes it exciting. I had
to work last night. I was shooting a red carpet for the Mark Twain Prize for comedy writing at Kennedy Center, and we'd go into the file room, and I'm like, everybody's like on deadline trying to get these photos out. Myself included, and I'm like,
you cover one event, but just everyone's watching what else is going on in the world.
What is the Nat score? Like, forget telling me the names of these celebrities. And so it was great. And it was sadly 4-0. So I ran home. It got me to file really quickly, though.
There you go.
I was supposed to cover our winning I was supposed to go from that to a potential winning celebration, but that didn't happen.
So I don't pay attention to sports. Where is the series at right now? Like, what's the? Because I know Houston lost the first 2 episodes. Or first 2
episodes, yes. It's reality TV. It's all scripted.
It could be, It could be. They build up a lot of drama for this reality TV baseball. So the first 2 games were in Houston. Last 3 games were in D.C. I was on standby to go to if we were going to win. We had photographers, of course, last night, Saturday night and Sunday night on standby, but that didn't happen for the big win in D.C. because we're going to go nuts. So we're traveling last 2 games in Houston. So that's the plan. Yeah. So that's the biggest. Work's okay, but I was a little focused on the Nats.
So are you going to go to Houston to cover that? Like if they win? No.
I have to say, sports photography. Not my bag. No. I never cover it. I mean, I do. I'll cover a little league or a feature for the Metro section, but that is an art form unto itself. And the post photographers are we have 2 sports photographers that really just do sports. They're awesome. Like Tony Sanders and Jonathan Noon. They're really great. So, and if I'm forgetting somebody, I apologize, but they're awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. Not my thing. Can you shoot sports?
You guys shoot sports? Shoot sports.
Yeah. I mean, I've shot sports and, I find it to be fun because I don't care about sports personally. I don't watch or care about any team. Even when I was going to Syracuse and we had the Go Orange team, whatever, I only went there to shoot games. And, I find them fun for the time that I'm shooting them, but I can't see myself being one of these people who goes to every single basketball game and shoots every single game. I feel as a subject, I would get very bored with sports. But I did enjoy shooting a variety of sports. One day I'd shoot soccer, the other day I'd shoot basketball, lacrosse. That was a very interesting sport to shoot. trying to integrate motion into that, because if you shoot it just straight, at like 250 of a second or whatever the high shutter speed to stop motion, you get some okay shots. But if you can integrate motion with that sport, it's very much, much more vivid imagery, I think. But I've never been drawn to sports photography as like something I want to focus my time and effort on. I've done almost all the sports I can think of, boxing. I've done a little bit ice hockey,
Shuffleboard,
badminton,
curling, anything slow.
Oh yeah.
I could do. No problem. Yeah.
I could do curling.
No, it's just, I had to do it as an intern at Papers, but in the professional level, I do portraits or sport around. I photographed Ovi of the Washington Capitals, and practices. But yeah, they're really talented sports photographers, super talented.
Oh, absolutely.
Indeed. We'll talk about what you were been up to, Travis, here in a minute, because you were mostly doing the Photoplus Expo this past week. So that's going to be the focus of our first topic. But before we get into that, let's introduce our guest this week. I'm happy to introduce Kevin Blackburn to the show. Kevin, tell the audience about yourself.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm Kevin Blackburn. I'm a Virginia-based editorial and commercial photographer. Live in Stanton near Charlottesville. Just plotting my time. Been doing it for 20 plus years now, I guess.
Oh, wow. What brought you into the field?
In one way, shape, or form. A friend of my mom's, when she was coaching the Paralympic team, U.S. Paralympic team, I was about 12, gave me a camera, and that was the end of it. It was all downhill from there. So, he gave me his old Yashica, and when he bought the first Minolta autofocus camera.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with it, and I did it for fun, and then did it in high school and then in college, and then went in the military. Did not do photography in the military for the military, just did it as my own thing, and went to school and finished school while I was on active duty, came home. I started freelancing and then freelanced for a bit when I came home, and then in 2004 started this business.
Wow.
And been doing late 3, early 4.
Cool.
And so here I am. I'm still making it somehow.
Hey, that's
still paying the bills.
That's an achievement right there. You said you did it on the side in the military, but you knew that there were military photographers. So did you think about that as a career field while you were in, or something you would have pursued had you stayed in the military?
Yeah, I actually, I didn't realize it till after the fact. When I went in, I had kind of a specific goal when I went in the Air Force, and so I went that route, and then I didn't even think about anything else. I was very focused.
What was your job in the Air Force?
I was a POL guy.
Okay.
So I was a 2FO71. I did I did FARP. I got to pronounce that very.
You're throwing a bunch of acronyms that I know, but these folks probably don't know. So you might want to spell that out.
So
Definitely not.
FARP, Forward Area Refueling Point.
Yeah.
So that was my gig, and it was great. I loved it, but I didn't realize till afterwards, and after I was settled in. Had I been able to stay in, I probably would have looked at cross training into I guess they called it back then. They called it combat photo. I don't know what they call it now, but
public affairs photographer, photojournalist, combat photography. Still photographer. It used to be when you were in, it was separate career fields. So there was still photographer, public affairs. Now they're all combined into one photojournalism career field. And just so people understand, a forward air refueling point is essentially a location out where, in the desert or somewhere in some remote location where they're going to have a tanker of fuel and a hose, and planes or military craft would land there and get refueled. So opposite from aerial refueling, which is done in the air, it's sort of ground-based. So the plane would land out, or a helicopter would land, and you would refuel it. And then a POL is, I think, petroleum, oil, and lubrication. Is that right? Is that...
Yeah, which makes absolutely no sense, because all you do is push jet fuel. I mean,
right.
and ground fuel. And if you're really lucky in the POL stuff, what you also occasionally get to do the fun things where they'll turn like an old Sea King or a C-130 or something into a giant flying gas can. Mm-hmm. And you go out and land on some really beautiful unimproved airfield and sit and wait.
Yep.
And then hope that the guys that are coming are your guys that are coming to refuel.
Indeed.
And it's fun. It's a good I loved it. It was a great thing for me at the time in my life, and I miss it.
Awesome. Well,
So,
we'll look forward to learning more about you and your work as we kind of discuss different topics throughout the show. But I want everybody to know, I discovered Kevin through our Patreon page. Kevin was very generous donation backer. He's donating to us at the $10 level. So very much thank you, Kevin, for your patronage. Your support helps us do a lot of interesting things and explore and expand the show and its capabilities. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank all our patrons for supporting the show, because you make it possible to do what we do. If you'd like to support the show financially, go to patreon.com/aroundthelens, and you can come in at any level that you like. If you come in at $1, you're going to get all of our content ahead of time. And if you donate more, you can have more of a role and stake in the show. Furthermore, if you come in at the $20 level, we're giving a book away by Timothy Floyd. So I got 2 copies of the book that I'd love to give away to potential people, half the price they sell on Amazon, signed by the author. So go and commit to that level for at least a month, and you can get that book, and we would really appreciate your patronage. So we've got a lot of show to get to tonight, so let's start with topic number 1, the Photoplus Expo. The Photoplus Expo, in case you don't know, is it's an annual photography expo in October. It's been going on for who knows how many years. Maybe Travis knows. Let's go with Travis, because Travis spent this whole weekend and most of probably last week participating in it. So Travis, tell us about your Photoplus Expo experience.
Yeah, well, Photoplus Expo is, it's an industry gathering, so you have all the, the big camera makers and little independents and kind of gather at the Javits Center in New York City. And it's been going on for years yet. I don't know exactly how many years, but this year was a little kind of a changeover. Not only was I, an attendee, but I was also an exhibitor as well as a lecturer and spoke and produced some events and stuff like that. So I got to see it from every single side this year, which was kind of exciting. But it kind of split. It was a little different this year. So Photo Expo usually had a downstairs aspect that was all workshops, and they had the Palm Springs portfolio reviews. And last year, I think that Photoplus actually kind of felt like there was split in the audience. So they wanted to get rid of all the workshops downstairs and put the photo review upstairs. And Palm Springs didn't want to do the upstairs, so they pulled out, and everything was consolidated just to the upstairs. And some vendors pulled out. Some big vendors pulled out, including Sony, which created their own workspace and created a mini convention called Sony Creative Space, which was incredible, which was only about a block away at Sire Studios. And they were able to, because of union laws and all that, everything closes down at Javits at 5 p.m. So Sony did night activities, and they launched their B Alpha female program year 2, and released all the names for the new Alpha females, which is really exciting. And they did, photo walks and workshops and lectures and shooting stages and stuff like that. But Photo Expo, there was a lot less vendors there, especially the smaller ones, but there was definitely a different feel on the floor this year. So it's kind of a transition year, and we're going to have to really see if it's something that's going to carry over and really kind of is it the beginning of the end or the beginning of something new? And I think that's where we're going to see what happens next year. I think they hit their numbers with some attendance and stuff like that, but it definitely felt more sparse and and spacious. Mm-hmm. And I'm a Best Buy shopper. I love Best Buy, but when you see Best Buy at a professional photo, it kind of feels like it jumped the shark a little bit. So but there were lots of meetings. I got to go to the Adobe Influencer stuff, which hopefully I'll be able to tell you all about the wonderful stuff that's coming. It goes off embargo for me, an NDA for I think November 7th, so I'll be able to talk about some of the fun stuff that they're doing. And Sony's doing some amazing stuff as well. But it was exciting, and I think I hit new levels of tired. On Thursday, I was already exhausted. I think I produced 3 events, spoke at four events, and went to 7 events. So by the time Friday, Saturday came along, and so today was my first day. This is my first day I've had a moment free.
Oh my gosh!
So it was rough.
Well, looking at the About the Show page, it's been around since 1983, so I calculate that as 36 years it's been doing it. So it's a pretty long-running show, and it took place from Thursday to Saturday. I've been to the show before, back in the day when it did have all that stuff at the basement level, and I always enjoyed going to those exhibitions, or I'm sorry, the conferences. I mean, there was been a lot of great ones. Joe McNally did a lighting workshop. I've heard a bunch. Knockway was there talking about his war photography. and just a lot of interesting folks talking about interesting stuff. So kind of sad that they took it away this year.
Yeah, those were really missed this year. They got some great people. They got some amazing people doing that, and it was really, I think, missed that whole section of that was kind of gone.
Yeah, no. So this was your first year being an exhibitor?
Well, I'm the chairman of American Photographic Artists. Last year, I was just a board member, and so this year, I kind of, with National, took over the booth, and we put ourselves in there, and did mini portfolio reviews at the booth, and met and talked to all kinds of photographers, and told them what we do as APA, is a member benefit advocacy and further education and support group for photographers. So we were there for the whole thing there, and being an exhibitor, you get to get in early, you get to set up early, you get to see all the building of the show and the production and the tear down. So it's a little different vantage point, kind of the behind the scenes, which was kind of cool.
Right. Okay. And yeah, I was going to ask what the differences between just going as a participant and going as an exhibitor was.
You get to walk back by that huge line that everybody's lined up waiting to run in before them.
Early access.
That's the major difference. And they don't kick you out right away.
Indeed.
But it's, there's, I think the main thing that was still good is it brought a lot of professionals to the city. So there was lots of networking. There was lots that was going on, whether they were inside or not, people had a presence there and did, lectures or dinners or get-togethers, and there are tons of after parties. And so it's a great week where a lot of people you wouldn't see normally are in New York, and you get to kind of meet and talk. And so we'll see where the future lies for this, but it was still a good year for us and still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I remember I went there and I was doing my old podcast. It was Photo Fanatics, and I took my little microphone and my little recorder, and I went around and did a couple interviews with folks who were there. They treated me like press, actually. I had access, and I set up interviews with folks. I tried to talk to somebody about, from Canon, about the Canon at the time. Like, when's the 5D Mark III coming out? And they're like, oh, we can't talk about that. And then I met a bunch of people, and I had them on the show, and maybe I'll revive that for some sort of special Around the Lens retro look back series. I don't know. I've got a lot of great interviews in the archives that no longer exist online, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main stuff is you get to play with a lot of the newly released gear and stuff like that. And, even Canon had some of their new stuff, from their RF. I believe it was their 70 to 200 smaller lens for their RF line, and Sony had a bunch of stuff from that was amazing to play with the 9, the new 9, and the new Alpha 6000s and the A7R4s and stuff like that. So people get to go on shooting sets or shooting walks and stuff like that. And Sony really just, they brought it to another level this year. I mean, you talk about a fully produced event and a fully produced space. It's I think they picked the right year to separate themselves from PP and just be nearby and produce their own event and have control of it. It was and me being a Sony shooter, I was still extremely excited about it, and seeing everything they did was just top level and pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned Canon and Sony. What about Nikon? Are they up to?
Nikon had a huge footprint there. Nikon is the Canon and Nikon are, as soon as you walk in, are right there, and they have the largest footprint in the whole Javits Center. And Nikon is pretty much the first one you see, and they're giving away all the Nikon bags, so people were walking in with Nikon bags and stuff like that. So to put all their paperwork and swag gear into, so people are walking around with that. But Nikon had a ton of equipment and shooting little bays and kind of little sets and stuff like that. And Canon was doing a lot of stuff from having a stage and presentations. And Canon has, what Nikon doesn't. Canon is showing off, printers and video gear and, cameras and lenses. So what they get to show off and is a little different, because they put up a whole photo gallery too of stuff that's printed on their printers and stuff like that. Right. So it's kind of Canon's pretty cool in their display.
Yeah, Canon is an extremely diverse company. I mean, it's really kind of funny when you look at everything that they have their hands in. Like, photography is just one small part of the whole Canon infrastructure of businesses compared to Nikon, where it's the main core of their business. And so it's kind of funny how it all works. It's almost like Sony in a way. And I was just going to say, I remember Sony's booth when I went to Photoplus Expo back in 08 or 09 or whatever, back even before they had any of the real, current trend of Alpha 7 series cameras. and they had just come out with a camera. I can't remember which one it was that could shoot 1080p HD video. So I went up to their Sony rep and I was like, "Hey guys, about time you finally got on the 1080p bandwagon." By this time, Nikon and Canon both had 1080p cameras, and so I was like, giving them a hard time, and they were like, "Okay, what do you want?" They didn't know how to respond, and I just walked away.
And it's amazing to see what the mirrorless world has done. Like in the past, you would see all these strobe companies and stuff like that. And this year, you're seeing the huge differences from lighting. There's LED panels everywhere, and that was the big thing, is everyone showing off LED panels for lighting and mirrorless. And mirrorless is just a huge thing here. And Sony a couple of years ago was just a small little camera at these events, and eventually last year it took over the Nikon space, which had been that anchor point at the beginning where you walk in for years and years and years. And this year we'll just put this up for strong rumor, but I'll deny it. But if it happens, but Sony was supposed to get back that Nikon space, which it had last year, and I think there was some going back and forth, and PPE actually gave it back to Nikon, and Sony said, "Well, we're out of here," and that was kind of sort of the catalyst for Sony doing everything that they did, and it worked out really well for them.
Definitely
breaking away and doing their own separate thing right next door.
Yeah.
I remember when
they had rickshaws with Sony things, so they would rickshaw you over to the other thing, and buses and walks and signs on the street, and I mean, it was just it was really brilliantly executed.
the amazing Sony coup.
It added an excitement that wasn't at PPE. You walked into PPE and you walked into Sony, and they were very different. Where with Sony there was this excitement with walls and people outside gathering and doing photo walks, and you'd walk inside, and they built a whole diner set. So something that looked like this old wonderful diner with neon signs that were people shooting and doing action sets with a bubble guy and soccer balls and boxing, so people could shoot that with the A9. And then there's a stage going on with all these Sony artisans talking about that, and they went into night parties with B&H and Alpha, and they just did this nonstop incredible performance of stuff, and you walk out of there with Sony swag and Alpha t-shirts and caps, and everybody's having fun, and it's just like, wow, that's the culture and the support that is Sony. But at no point did you ever feel that they were pushing it upon you, like, oh, you have to buy Sony. It's like, no, this is what we create, this is the environment we create, this is the world we create for creatives, and if you like it, come on over. But it wasn't like, oh no, you have to buy this camera at all. And that's what I kind of like about Sony.
It's so much better to share. Oh, sorry, Kevin. To share the space. This just reminds me of this infighting we had when I organized our WPOW portfolio review. Nikon wants to shove everybody else aside and not have any of the other vendors come to our events, and I had to really put my foot down to get Canon there, and it was a little bit ugly, but yeah. And there's no point. I mean, Canon's attitude is like, we're all going to be there. Let's all show our stuff, and people are there to explore the equipment. I think it works. It's a better model. I like how Sony's answer to that is pretty strong. Yeah.
I think it's one of the culture.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's to the culture of what we do. I mean, we all see it. That kind of, I think for the most part, every photographer I ever meet is very like, hey, it's all about everybody. But for some reason, there's this mindset that it's just me, and it's not. And it sounds like Sony took a lead from their music side of the business. I was at South by Southwest with a client this year and went to several of the Sony music events, and it sounds exactly like what you had going on there in New York with the Sony camera stuff. And it's just a great big good time, tons of fun and love, and everybody's having a good time. And you're getting beat over the head with branding, but it doesn't feel like it. And
you don't feel like you just walked in. It's like, can I help you buy anything? What do you need? What do you need? It's like they're not doing that. They're saying, check out what we can do.
And it's like Dave said. I mean, it's like it is. And they're more than just a camera company, and they're pulling from that.
And initially, you look at Sony when it launches. You have this amazing camera that goes, hey, put an adapter and use any lens you want. I mean, what other camera company goes, no, hey, you want to bring your Canon lens? Here's an adapter. Here's it's like you can use vintage glass on it. You can it's like wait a minute, it's not just, I'm not stuck into one ecosystem just because I buy a Canon. I have to use Canon lenses. I have to use Canon. It's like suddenly there's third-party people making from Sigma to Tamron all making lenses for it. Plus, you can put an adapter on it and use your Canon glass. So suddenly it's not like I have to rebuy everything immediately to start shooting on this. It's a system.
I was a Nikon shooter for decades, and my big push when I first went Fuji mirrorless, and when I wanted the full frame mirrorless, I went to Sony because of that. I could adapt my Nikon glass flawlessly, and it's I don't know. That's a pretty gutsy move on Sony's part,
Agreed.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a lot of fun, PP, and I'm excited to see what happens next year. And where I was kind of skeptical about returning next year, I'm looking forward to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Canon and Nikon will take Sony's lead, and we'll have 16 different locations and venues around the same area. Although
it was fun. Years ago, Hasselblad split off and did a little remote event and stuff like that. So it's not the first time this has happened. So
Or we'll all learn to share. We'll all learn to go.
Right. Can't we all?
Somebody has to say it.
At the end of the night, they all want to go to the same parties.
Exactly.
I'm looking.
Yeah. Well, but somebody has to say it. There'll be a Leica event for the dentist. So,
Indeed. I'm looking at the show floor expo here. Glad to see some other names represented besides Canon and Nikon. Although it looks like from the show floor overview, Canon had the bigger booth, but probably square footage wise,
Fuji was nicely represented there.
Yeah.
Olympus was there.
Yep.
So I mean, obviously, Sigma had their lenses there. But it's there's a good group of people there. Where I think in years past you had lots of little vendors and these little pop up and inventive places that were there. Those weren't as really there this year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing Tamron, Panasonic, Epson. I'm glad to see Peak Design represented, of course, B&H.
Peak Design was there, and I got to play with their new tripod, which is pretty amazing. The whole the way it folds up and how small it is and how versatile it is. So I was an early Kickstarter on that, so I'm looking forward to getting that and actually to play with it. It's an amazingly designed tripod. It's the first one, and because they got rid of all that negative space between the legs, the way it folds up,
right.
and it's pretty impressive what they did.
Well, I would love to know your thoughts on the tripod when you get it.
I will let you know. I've been looking for the perfect tripod, travel tripod for a long time. It's like trying to find the perfect bag. It doesn't exist yet, but when it does, I'll let you know.
Indeed. And speaking of the Kickstarter things that backed, I got this bad boy right here.
Oh yeah.
This is the Switch Pod. I've already done like a first impressions unboxing video. I'm going to publish that at some point. I'll do a full review of this bad boy when I get a chance, but no, it's pretty neat. I'm glad I kickstarted it. Got to play with it over the weekend. And definitely has some utility in certain aspects. So, Kevin, have you been to any expos in your life doing this photography stuff?
Yeah, I went to PPN. Oh God, it's been probably 6 or 8 years ago. And then many years ago, I went to a WPPA conference out in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
A buddy of mine and I that were sharing a studio space at the time drove out there. Sorry if you hear my dog. I got my dog here with me today. She's a little. But they were great. It's like anything else. I think it's like any event. You're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
If you go with the right open mind. And I think the classes are always varied. But the coolest thing for me is you just get to meet other photographers that are your. You don't just get to meet the rock stars of the industry. You get to meet other people out there hashing it out just like you, and you get to talk about everything you're dealing with on the day-to-day business thing. You get to learn, and then you do get to go to the trade shows and play with cool, fun gear that most of us can't afford to buy every new one that comes out. But it's and I think you guys are on the track of something there too. I had this conversation the other day with somebody. It's like everything changes. We get used to things and everything changes. So maybe this is just the new form factor for Photoplus. Right. We're going to see a main show and then little other things going on around it. That kind of orbit it. So.
Well, I was going to say that works to a point because ultimately Sony can only have its secondary show because there is Photoplus Expo going on. If Photoplus Expo wasn't going on, you couldn't have, I don't think, the sort of offshoot shows be nearly as successful because they're essentially piggybacking off of what's already going on. So, I mean, if Canon and Nikon and all these other ones pull out and Photoplus Expo folded under, I'm sure Sony would have something probably. Maybe they do their own separate show around that time. But again, these, these sort of offshoot shows exist because of the main show. Like, for instance, in the video game space, the Electronic Entertainment Expo is going through this same thing where Nike, Sony and now we're talking about Sony again. Sony and Microsoft and other ones are kind of like not really playing with the large show. They're either not attending or they're doing their own thing. And that can only go on for so long until the whole nature of the show eventually collapses under the weight of its, But I think there's always going to be people who want that sort of space to have a way to promote their stuff. Evelyn, you haven't been to this expo or really any expos from what we talked about earlier. Is there any thoughts or any consideration you might consider going to one in the future?
Yeah, definitely. You got me pumped up. I mean, I would love to get my hands on all that gear, especially because I'm really on the cusp of, do I want to switch to mirrorless? And I'd love to play with all that stuff. I'm really excited what you said, Travis, about the LEDs. I know I never use strobes. I do a lot of portraits and I use LED lights for them. I sort of discovered how easy it was, and I never wanted to deal with strobes. So that's been my MO. And so, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. But I think the best part, I think both of you touched on this, the networking. I mean, you go to these events and you meet all these people that you wouldn't necessarily get to meet, and you get to hash out ideas, and you do make connections that I think that's the most important part of any, if it's a portfolio review or an expo or a talk or, whatever it may be. That's the key for sure. I see your.
You look at like these things like South by Southwest and all these kind of things where all these small people used to go. It gets so expensive. That's the same thing that's happened at PPE. Is that it's the huge vendors that can afford to be inside, but the smaller ones and stuff like that you can't do. And Javits is a union place, so you can, like, if I was gonna just the internet is to sign up for their internet, because you can't use internet in there because it's so bad, is thousands of dollars. I mean, everything you do in there costs you money. If you want to move something, it has to be the union that moves it. So they're almost pricing themselves out of this expo for a lot of people because of that. And I think Sony was very smart.
Cost for the average person?
It's free now. This is like you can register and go for free. Where you used to last year they had a VIP pass and stuff like that for like $100, and you get a little gift bag and stuff like that. But basically, they're almost giving away all the tickets, for people to attend to this. And I think what Sony did really smartly in this, and you say people exist, they wouldn't be able to do it without. But what Sony with the Alpha line has been doing all these Alpha events all over, and producing these kind of events for the last couple of years now, and doing. This year, they put it all together and put it in one space, from the releasing of the Alpha Female to workshops to their stage and into a space. And it just, they took everything they've learned over the last couple of years and launched it into a single space. And you can tell, why they're Sony now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Photoplex Expo, as far as I know, has always been free if you registered ahead of time. There was a ticket cost if you went on the day, but otherwise, if you pre-registered, I think it was always free because it's an offshoot of like the Photo PDN magazine or whatever. So,
there was always a way to get a free ticket.
Right.
It wasn't free. Like there was workshops and this and that, but it was like if you register through PDN and get a subscription, you get a free ticket. It's like, but this was the first year. It was like there was no VIP ticket. There was no add-ons for workshops. Right. It was just like get a free ticket.
Sweet. All right.
Oh, wow.
Well, if I could go back to this expo, I would, but of course, I have to go to the Korean Photo Expo. If that's a thing, I'm sure it is.
But they have fast internet.
Indeed, yes, very fast.
I was going to say internet will not be an issue there.
No, absolutely not. All right, well, let's go on.
Neither will you.
Let's go on and move on to our second topic this evening. We're talking about photographer caricatures. So I found this on Petapixel. I thought it was sort of a funny little thing. Yeah. We could all kind of look at this and laugh and see who we relate to or know people who maybe are like this. I'll throw it over to whoever would like to say who they think they are from this character, or if they don't think anything applies to them, maybe kind of how would they sort of caricature themselves?
I don't know, man. I think that at some point you're in the evolution of a photography career or a photographer's life. You go through several of these. I think you transition through phases, and then you finally grow up and. They're absolutely hilarious to me. I mean, if you're offended by this, I'm sorry, but I think
then
take
you
it with
really are one of them.
Yeah, you are. Take it with a grain of salt. I think it was meant, and it's pretty funny. I mean, it's a healthy look at yourself, I think. You know, but I think I don't know. What I fear is which one I fit in now. Maybe the elder. I'm getting old, so the elder.
I think I'm the momtographer, personally. That's me.
These are cracking me up. These are hilarious. I think I relate actually more to the male caricatures because I'm around males a lot more than I am females.
Right.
So if I'm at an event, last night, for example, I was 2 females out of 10, let's say. So these are very familiar to me. So these really cracked me up, especially the expert. There are plenty of those in my world. So they're great. I think they're spot on. I definitely
identify with it. You know, it bits and pieces of each one.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so funny. You're sort of an amalgamation of all of them. But I love that. For me, I'm probably more the typical female photographer, the professional, which is like, stop blocking the bride, or put your effing cell phone away, or I swear to God, I'll kill you.
I'm guilty.
The professional, is great. Right spot, totally. Yeah.
I think I'm guilty of being the expert, although again, the expert's in quotes there. So,
Yeah, exactly.
am I, I think I'm an expert, but am I really? Who knows? How can you be really an expert in this field anyways? But I mean, obviously,
all of it in us.
Yeah, that's the only one I can relate to.
He is like not really the expert.
Right.
That sort of was my take on that character. Yeah. I mean, he probably is. There's the pro that's been, on the hill for a million years. But then there's also that person that is the expert.
I think the greatest part is we all identify with parts of this as we grow as photographers. As you were saying, it's like at some point in your career, you tried HDR if you're, in most photographers, and you look back at it like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. It's like you look back at some of these characters like, yep, I know that person, or I've been that person.
I think I've been the acrobat. I've been the acrobat when I was younger. I've gotten down on the ground.
Acrobat for sure.
And the adventure.
I'm always laying in the dirt.
I'm more the acrobat. Oh, my back.
I'm with you, Travis.
I can't get up. Yeah.
Thank God for articulating screens. That's all I have to say. As I get older, if I didn't have that's why I don't want to use a Canon anymore. It's like that. It doesn't pull out on the the 5D Mark IV. You can't you want to get on the ground to shoot. You got to get on the ground to shoot. Flip out a screen and just put it on the ground.
Thinking this for Micro Four Thirds. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
The elder is really funny too. There are these people that show up in DC and they've just got their little Leica, and they're really, they're just like all of a sudden there's somebody right behind you, and who did these? I'm loving these.
They're quite funny.
They're super quiet. It's the shoes. They're shoes that old people wear. They just sneak right up on you. They're really soft and comfy. You don't even know that they're very unassuming.
Versus shoes.
If only we should name that type of shoe. Perhaps
we should.
A sneaky shoe.
A sneaky shoe. Yeah, that's too close to
sneaksters.
I don't know.
Sneaksters.
There you go.
That's all they are.
Yeah, the elders would definitely make the best kind of street photographers and fly on the walls. You never notice them. They're very unassuming.
Yeah. They can play off like what?
Yeah. I've definitely never been the shy one. My personality doesn't, but still.
And obviously people are identifying with this because it's one of those things that sort of went viral very quickly. Everybody was putting this up and spreading it around, and laughing and putting up "Who are you?"
And I'm sure, Kevin, you and I could both be the adventurer, right? You got your dog. All you need is a mountain, right? I'm sure there's some mountains, some blue mountains, or what are they called, the Appalachians.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah, you can be the adventurer.
Right now, my dog is driving me crazy. She's here because she's been sick, and so
the only one that is actually disturbing is the creeper. That's the one you don't want to know or be.
Yeah,
100% honest. When Dave sent me these, and I started looking through, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty funny. That's funny. And I hit the creeper, and I literally got a shiver. I was just like, oh my God, because. And I actually just experienced this I was working on this, trying to do a test trip on this little personal project, and I was really worried in the state of the current world we're in and the way people perceive media and stuff like that. I was really worried people were going to be very standoffish or confrontational to me, and they weren't. Blessedly, they weren't. I think part of it is you get back what you put out, so I tried to be that open and happy guy. Yeah. But I tell you, there's a lot of people that see it. Especially, I think it's the guy with a camera. I don't think women don't get this stigma as much, I hope. But the guy with the camera, oh, what are you doing here? Who are you? What are you up to?
Yeah.
You've got to be up to no good. You're a funny looking guy with a camera. And man, I tell you what, I didn't experience it, thankfully. Most people were very cool and open. But that one made me just shake. I was like, oh. Yeah. Because
on that same note, what is the GWC? Does anyone know what that means? Guy with camera? Is that what's
guy with camera?
Guy with camera. What
is that? Is that supposed to be some sort of, I don't know. Is that just somebody?
I think he is the I think he's the husband
uncle
to
at the
mom
wedding that always shows up, the shooting everything.
Yeah, he's the husband to the momtographer.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He kind of falls in the creeper category in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like that.
So he's definitely that husband.
The super hobbyist, and like this guy's kind of perfect with his fanny pack on, and then he's got
telling
really
professionals on a shoot, like, well, why are you doing it that way? You should be doing this.
He's got to take his lens cap off first, and that kind of person.
They need to add.
That would be like I'm the mansplainer in my world. Like I'll be, with all my equipment shooting something, and some random guy comes up to me and asks me, well, why don't you try it like this? And it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah,
why not?
They need to have that caricature for like the hover guy, the one who's like looking at your camera gear, or just like being, oh, what are you shooting there, huh? Oh, what do you got there? Oh, you're shooting with that, huh? Okay, I've got one of those. Yeah, what are your settings? Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's like the camera nerd. I don't know if there was a caricature for this. I encounter this person a lot, like the camera nerd person that's got all the gear, the super hobbyist, right?
It's not represented. It should be.
That's entering. Yeah,
the one that has to have the absolute latest gear, even though he doesn't go off of automatic.
Right.
Yeah, where's the dentist?
And every detail about it, every technical, scientific detail has it down pat.
Whoa. Yep. Those are the people that come up to you and ask you what gear you're shooting for, and they're like, really, and I've got some falling apart, taped up camera, lens scratched up, no lens cap. Yeah, my gear's a mess. And I find there's a correlation between that person and people who are into trains. If you ever done any assignments on trains, they go hand in hand. Every time I'm doing a train assignment, there's also train and camera people crossover. Really into trains, cameras.
I did a story on trains years ago for a train magazine with a buddy of mine that's an Uber train enthusiast and photographer.
Right.
I never want to go back to that world. It was great it was a 24-hour shoot. So we were up for 24 hours doing this day in the life thing. It was great. It was fun, educational, had a good time. It's a once in a lifetime
Been there,
experience.
done that, not doing it again.
Yeah. But it's he was interesting to work on the project with, because it was like she said, it was like both combined, the Uber train and the Uber.
And they train people do a lot of photography, right? That's the connection. Man. Yeah, it's funny.
My favorite is seeing those videos of the person that's waiting for that one engine that hasn't been riding, in 5 years, and then like the other train comes and they miss it. Those are my favorite.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, our profession is filled with both the extremely technical and the extremely creative, like in terms of people who can do photography. You don't see that as much in other fields, at least not that I've seen. You're not seeing that like in the painting world, right? In the painting world, there's people who are mostly creative, and some people might be technical, but for the most part, like in our world, you can be extremely technical or extremely creative and not care about the technical and focus on the moment and stuff like that, and the artistry. So it's an interesting cross section that brings people together with photography. So yeah, I think there's a few different characters that aren't represented in here, but again, when you're going by all the different subsets of folks, I'm sure you get down very like there's a couple of these I'd never seen up before, like the team up. I don't know. I guess that's just a group that works together. The artist, I've never really encountered anyone like that. Yeah, okay.
Fun. It's a bunch of photographers. I actually sort of did a team up for a Halloween shoot recently.
Oh, really?
Talking about Halloween shoots and going to other topics. Where you get some people that are into makeup and doing all this kind of stuff, and then suddenly you have a bunch of photographers, and you all kind of get together and produce something and do something that you normally wouldn't do just solo. That get all these people together to produce something, which is kind of fun.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to our third topic. Unless Kevin, do you have something?
What would that be?
Kevin, do you want?
I was just going to make the last.
Go ahead.
No,
Kevin.
go ahead.
I was going to make one last comment on the hipster. We're going to have a very interesting new thing on the hipster. I noticed yesterday while shopping at Lowe's with my wife, they're selling the Polaroid camera and film at Lowe's now. They brought it back. So we're going to have like the construction hipster photographer coming.
Nice.
It's like when they started selling Holgas at Urban Outfitters.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. It hit me.
No, good point.
Nat Geo also came out with a Barbie, a photographer Barbie.
Oh.
Speaking of caricatures.
Cool.
So we've got, she's in her safari jacket and camera. It's a very small lens for what I
kind of camera she's
wildlife
using.
photography. Yeah. Binoculars. So.
You see that every now and
I don't know.
You see that every now and then, the photographer action figure. I've seen that before. Either associated with some sort of line like Barbie or another brand, or just kind of its own thing. So, yeah, good to see that. Maybe Ken will come out and have his own video studio or something like that. I don't know. Photo video team. The team up.
Journalist Ken.
What's that? Photojournalist Ken? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Photojournalist,
And photojournalist Barbie. They can work together on a project. Why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump to our last topic this week. Of course, this is the episode right before Halloween, so it's spooky. As you can see here, if you're watching the live stream, I've got the spooky background going on. Trying to keep things, in the style.
Topical.
Yeah, topical. Trying to keep, just be within the moment. We're going to talk here momentarily about, some creepy photos from the past and maybe some stuff we're working on with relation to Halloween. Before we go into these photos, is anybody doing anything for Halloween? Evelyn, you dressing up?
I'm trying to survive it.
I will be shooting for Robin Hood, actually. Robin Hood is doing which is an amazing nonprofit, one of the biggest ones, deals with poverty and education and stuff like that in New York City. I will be shooting a block party and a costume block party, which I work as often as I can for Robin Hood because it's such a good organization. I'll be working.
Cool.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it is.
I'll dress up, but I always come up with a costume sort of very last minute. But I also have sort of anti-sexy female costume bent, which could be a whole nother topic. But I really don't understand why we need to have sexy cats.
The whole sexy costume. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I went to photographed a client the other day for a huge Halloween party that they do every year, and it's almost like every woman that comes is like, it's a sexy something, it's like, how do I make, I'm a sexy mortician. Like, what? No, it's like
it's not a thing. What? You're a mortician. Right. So yeah, like,
no, it's a bit over the top.
So, I get it.
I guess you do some guys, no, it happens with guys too. There was one guy that was just, shirt off, baseball bat guy all night. I'm like, he loves the bat.
I don't see it as often. So
yeah, but the key is wait till you have teenage daughters like I do.
Like you're not wearing that out.
yeah. So it becomes
happened with my niece.
Survival.
She was a soccer player. I was like, that's not
what they wear for soccer. No.
Right. That's an easy costume. Yeah.
I've been to your soccer games. I know what they wear, and that's not it.
Those are not regulation shorts. Yeah. So
not regulation.
Yeah. My job.
Why do your cleats have heels on them?
That's one long cleat.
So I'm all for the clever, funny, original costume. But a friend is having a Day of the Dead
party. Do you purchase something, or is it you're actually kind of like scavenging the house and coming up with something very clever?
Scavenging. I'm just about the worst.
Oh, that's great.
Ever. So, but this year,
I admire that.
Because I have to go to a Day of the Dead party, I may actually do the.
Oh,
and I'm
cool.
in Mexico this year. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'll get into the makeup. That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you need a quick last-minute costume, you take a white shirt and get a Sharpie, and you write "I heart ceilings," and you just put that on. There you go.
I heart ceilings. Okay. Check.
Sorry, guys.
What am I missing here?
I think this is going over our heads.
Yeah, Dave.
What goes over our heads and relates to ceilings? Oh, I'm sorry. I love fans. No, wait. No, you're a fan of ceilings.
He's already messing.
A ceiling fan.
Yeah, ceiling fan. I heart ceilings.
Fan. Okay.
There you go.
Good. I'll put that on the list.
Yeah, indeed. Oh my goodness. Anyways, let's talk about pictures from the past. So I found this BuzzFeed article. I actually signed up for a newsletter called JPG, which BuzzFeed puts out every week, and it kind of highlights different sort of articles related to the world of photojournalism, visual journalism, and this was kind of neat. kind of focusing on the dark history of photography. I'm just scrolling through some of the images on the website.
I think you kind of fall into two categories in this. You either absolutely love this stuff or you're like, I don't want any part of it. I love this stuff. I am a horror kid. I loved horror movies. I love the photos. I love everything about it.
I'm okay with most of this except for the stuff with like dead bodies. I can't really do dead bodies in photos. That's kind of a little bit too much for me personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I enjoy the special effects and just the whole kind of fun of it.
I dig the nostalgia of some of it. It's just because it's old and, you know, you can explain away some of the weird stuff that's in there just by technique or whatever. But I just love the fact it's like stepping back in time. You know, it's looking at our history. It is. Yeah. And it's kind of fun. I'm kind of like you. I just like the old horror movie stuff, man. I love anything that's got that fear factor.
Growing up in that, you know, and then part of the reason I'm not, you know, a full-on journalist is because I like creating images with my camera, and that is, you know, any possible way, from costumes to lighting to all that kind of stuff. So I'm, you know, as a kid growing up and watching movies and being a Star Wars kid and all that stuff, and Halloween was a time to dress up and, you know, be those characters and live a kind of fantasy and extra special life. So Halloween for me was always this wonderful, wonderful time and period where people just had fun and, you know, dressed up and kind of, you know, became things that you know, that their imagination let them be. And I think as, you know, artists, that's the most important thing we can. I almost wished Halloween was all of the year where people could, you know, we always judge people on what they wear and stuff like that. And when Halloween was that one night, everybody could go out and dress as they wanted and everybody was having fun with it. And I'm like, why isn't life like that? I mean, like, why do we have to put on a suit? It's like, you should be able to, tomorrow I'm going to be Harry Potter. And the next day I'm going to go as a scientist or something. You know, we should embrace, you know, each other's, you know, wonderful, fun and fanatical kind of beings.
It's kind of the great equalizer in a way. It just brings everybody to the same level. We're all just human beings trying to get by. Yeah. It is. I do. That's a good point.
And I'm looking at the photographs you sent me, Travis. I've got the one image here where the clown is reflected in a Sony TV. Nice. I love that low-key advertising.
That was just luck.
Indeed.
Speaking of clowns, that clown visit to the hospital was beyond scary. I mean, that is literally the scariest clown I've ever seen.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit on the dark side.
You see like screaming kids, like, no, you don't do that.
There's nothing about that clown's makeup, and nothing about that clown says clown, funny, happy. It's really a bizarre.
It's kind of funny how many people have a phobia of clowns. They either like love it or they just absolutely nope, don't get a clown near me. I don't want anything to do with a clown. You know, I think clowns and mimes are in that same kind of category.
You either love them or they completely creep you out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this clown.
What about the mummy? Are those real mummies? There's one of John Wilkes Booth, supposedly.
I don't think it looks like a real dehydrated carcass. I don't know if it's actually John Wilkes Booth, but definitely a dead body.
But is that that's a real body?
I think so.
Okay.
You know, speaking from my limited experience as a paramedic years ago, and it looks real. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's got the real glass eyes like a mortician would put in that era. But I'm like you guys, you know, it's that, I don't know. I like the first one got me just because it has a bit of a Crutzen-esque build out kind of thing. Like Travis says, you like to build the picture, create the image. Yeah. It's just a really, really dark image. You know, it's really kind of scary. It is freaky.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm trying to figure out why the ghost hunter has a gun. That one, I was like, is part of his equipment.
Well, yeah, shoot them ghosts.
Maybe it's
or
something there.
In case they get out of hand.
I guess, but it's kind of interesting because I mean, you see all the shows on TV now, and all the ghost hunter shows that are on, and you look back and look 70 years ago, they were still doing it.
Always a fascination, you know.
It's always been,
yeah.
So. But yeah, I think even the one in the first one is probably real cadavers or real bodies.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like those photographs they had, you know, where they would prop up the dead relatives and do the family photos. You know, that's
that was that one photographer that was very famous for doing all of those. I forget. yeah, you always kind of study that in photo school or whatever like that, and you're like, yeah.
The kind of replacement for the death mask was the death portrait.
Yeah, exactly.
Travis, this shoot you did with the clown, what was this?
That was a photographer team up, where I had a bunch of friends that kind of in that urbex kind of field that that turned me on to shooting abandoned places. They usually go hand in hand with kind of wanting to create Halloween stuff and stuff like that. So I knew some friends that had some special effects makeup and costumes and stuff like that. So we all kind of found an old urbex abandoned place to shoot and create some fun Halloween. So for me, it was creating social content for my Instagram and stuff like that I could post out, because I'm always looking to kind of create new content to push out social media and all that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come along and shoot this. So when I saw his costume and the environment we're in, I'm like, ooh, this is actually kind of scary, and we can create a really cool image here. So I took a killer clown and made some cool images with that. So that all those will be kind of released on my Instagram and Facebook on with a fun little video I did on Halloween.
Cool. Kevin, you got any Halloween photo shoots you doing besides probably your kids?
No, nothing for me. I'm sure I'll get pulled into photographing my niece and nephew that are 2 and 5, but beyond that, I have no plans for Halloween. I'm actually home, I think, the rest of this month, other than maybe one day, so I'm happy about that. So I'll actually be home for Halloween for a change.
Just be handing out that candy?
Yeah, and our neighborhood is one of those neighborhoods that they literally show up by the trailer load.
Where I had it as a kid.
Oh my!
I lived in a 40-story high-rise with 10 apartments on each level. You would just go, and I had friends that would literally come over and change their mask and do it 2 or 3 runs in the same building,
God.
With shopping bags full of candy.
Yeah, kids that they literally people pull into our neighborhood with a utility trailer full of kids, and just drop them off, and they hit the neighborhood, and then here comes another one. And we have a pretty, our neighborhood has got a lot of kids in it already, but
wow,
it's a pretty rural. I live in Augusta County here in Virginia. It's fairly rural, and I guess we're just known as that neighborhood. And we do tend to go a little overboard on the candy. So
it's fun. You get those. Are you a neighborhood where you get the couple neighbors that go full on, from Halloween to Christmas, that the lawn becomes the Christmas or the Halloween the little tombstones go up with all the lights and the spooky stuff and.
Yeah. We have a few of the neighbors that just really push the limits of what the homeowners association agree with, and I support that 100%. I mean, do everything you can to upset the homeowners association.
Hysterical.
They sent out a thing a couple years ago about political signs, and so I immediately went out and got every political sign I could find for every person, every party. I didn't care, and I put all of them in my yard. I was like, okay, but it is. We have a handful. It's we're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see what the Johnsons are doing this year, and wait, we got to make sure we go over and see what the Smiths are doing, because they do something insane and
keeping up with the Johnsons.
Oh yeah. Oh God. But yeah, that we have those neighbors. We're in that world, and it's a sickness, I know, for them. It's got to be, but it's one we all enjoy.
Yep.
So.
And Evelyn, how about for you? Any photo assignments that you'll be doing, or is it just basic for Halloween? Or is it just basically going to the party?
Yeah, I hope to be going to a party. In my sort of editorial world, that would be way too far in advance for me to have an assignment. It would be maybe 2 days in advance. If I'm lucky, I would get a call. So I'll keep you posted. Maybe next week I'll have some news.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I've just mostly been photographing my kids and going to an events and stuff like that. I did actually a shoot for my the unit I'm working with here in Korea. We had a little trunk or treat thing going on, so I took some cameras out and just did some general photojournalism of that event. But again, nothing too crazy, nothing going out and
Your
doing
kids
any
already
sort of
have their
photo
costumes.
shoots.
Have you picked out costumes?
We're using last year's costumes. Actually, they still fit.
Still fit.
Yeah. Julian is Pikachu. And Adrian is a bumblebee. Not the Transformer, just an actual bumblebee.
This is an actual bumblebee.
That's right.
I can't wait to see what my niece and nephew are. They're always fun and cute. My sister-in-law is much younger, so younger kids. My teenage daughters, on the other hand, and my
TBD.
son. Yeah,
If you're a
man.
photographer and you get to be in New York City, the Halloween parade is one of the most entertaining and most
Oh, yeah.
creative parades you could possibly photograph. I mean, some of the costumes you see are the most elaborate or the most amusing things I've ever seen.
I love
From
going
fire-breathing dragons to politically hysterical puns.
I loved going to New York City to cover that. Great event.
Yeah.
I was in Ybor City in Tampa. I was
Oh, my
TY
God.
at MacDill Airport.
I don't think
Base.
people would realize what Ybor City is.
And we were there during Halloween, and we went over to Ybor City, and it was insane. I mean, like you said, Travis, it's probably very similar.
It's more bars per square foot than anywhere in the world, I think.
Oh, it was insane. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But the costumes were outrageous. I mean, you saw everything, across the gamut. I mean, stuff that would look like a special effects from a movie on down to I bought it at the store that day.
Yeah.
And I mean, some really spectacular stuff and entertaining.
Yeah.
Somebody wearing I Heart Ceilings t-shirt. I've seen that before in the real world. All right. Well, I think that's going to get to the end of our show. Kevin, thank you so much for being a guest and coming on. I truly appreciate it. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
The probably easiest two places is just kevinblackburn.com, and then the new personal project, the Route50us.com, that's getting launched in 2020. That's just kind of my world.
Cool. Well, we'll have that link in the show notes, so go check that out and support Kevin and everything he's doing. Travis or Evelyn, do you have anything you'd like to throw out before we sign off tonight?
You got to come with it, Evelyn. You said you were going to come with it.
I did.
What is it?
I don't know. All my mind is on the Nats, so I want everybody to go Nats. We got 2 more games we got to win here. That's my focus. There you
go. That's a good one. That's a good call.
Oh, Nats.
And those always.
Nats.
I think I close it off with every game, right? We always close it off with me saying, if you like what we're doing here, or if you have wonderful ideas, or if you want to continue the conversation, please get in touch with us. There's many different ways. And Dave, I hand it over to you to give them all the wonderful ways to reach us.
Just head on over to aroundthelens.com, find all the links that you can find to all our social media platforms and everything we're doing, our Patreon page, and all that fun stuff. If you're interested in being a guest on the show or know somebody who'd like to be on the show, please let us know. We'll reach out to them. We got a whole season 5 of blank slots that I have to fill with guests, so line them up. All right. Well, that's been our show for this week. I want to thank you, Kevin, for taking time out to be on here. Truly appreciate it. Always happy to have you on in the future. For Evelyn Hochstein and Travis Keys, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 198, and we are That's for Halloween. I'm a wolf. Howl. All right, we're out.
I'm a wolf.
Wolf. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Around the Lens. We hope you enjoyed the show. To continue the conversation, head on over to one of our social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. To support the show financially, consider donating to us via Patreon. For show notes from this week's episode and links to everything else we talked about, just go to our website, aroundthelens.com. Finally, if you or someone you know might be a good guest for the show, get in touch with us via email at info@aroundthelens.com.